to introduce you to the next U.S. Senator from the state of Virginia, Tim Kaine.
Wow, this is fantastic. There is nothing better in politics than pulling up and seeing your name up on the right side. I'm so glad I didn't drive up from the south on that. It's better coming this way. Listen, thank you all for coming here. And Tom, thank you for your service. Thank you for your kind introduction. It really does do my heart well to see you all here. We've had a great day. We had a big breakfast in Winchester. We just had a gathering at Clementine's in Harrisonburg, and it was great. People kept trying to give me food, and I said, no, I got another stop where I'm going to be eating. I'm coming to Rights, because Rights for me has been, I guess maybe for a lot of us in political life, Rights has been kind of a touchstone. I love coming here, and we've done a lot of good events here, and so it's good karma as part of the campaign to kind of start it off here. Some of you know I love Staunton. I spent part of my honeymoon in Staunton. My wife and I got married in November of 1984, 26 and a half years ago, and we spent part of our honeymoon here. And so for us, Staunton has always been a place that has really special associations. But now not just because of the place, but because of people. So there's folks in this crowd who I've known, some going back to the days that I was on the city council and mayor of Richmond, my lieutenant governor campaign, my work as governor, and it is really good to be back with you. And it is good to be back with you as a candidate for the United States Senate. As some of you might know, I mean, I was a little bit surprised. I worked hard, like a lot of you did, with Jim Webb when he won in 2006. And I thought he was going to run again. So when he announced in February that he wasn't, it took my wife Ann and me and our kids about a month to kind of wrestle with what that meant. But you know, as we did, we're so passionate about Virginia. We're so passionate about the arc that Virginia's been on, and the fact that we have been part of a state that's getting politically more competitive, that is getting more inclusive, that the economy has been getting more dynamic. And I realize I do not want to stand on the sidelines when there's an important job to be done. I want to be on the field with great people like you, trying to take forward the values that are making the state strong, that are making the nation strong. And I'll just tell you what I'm saying to Virginia voters as I'm traveling around is pretty simple. And that's this: America may have challenges, but Virginia has answers. Not that we're doing everything right. Look, we can always do better, but I'm really convinced that there's some things about Virginia that if we can bottle them, and if I can take them with me to Washington, we'll be able to solve some of the problems at the national level. And let me just talk quickly about three, then I'll take a couple of questions, then I want to go out and mingle, and then get something to eat. Three areas where the nation's wrestling with challenges that I think Virginia's got some answers. The economy and jobs first, fiscal responsibility second, and the third is balance and civility, the way we do politics, all right? Economy and jobs. Look, here's where we are nationally. When President Obama was inaugurated, GDP was shrinking, we were losing jobs, and the stock market was plummeting. The stock market now is in the 12s, not the 6s. And we've added jobs 15 months in a row, not lost job 22 months in a row. And GDP is growing again, not shrinking, and that's great. And pretty much Democrats had to do all of that with no help from the other side. But we also know we're not where we want to be yet. We've got to continue to accelerate the economy, both internally, but also we got some tough competition. We got other nations that are working real hard to take opportunities away that we thought were ours. So how do we get to be the nation that's got that really dynamic economy again, the one that we want? I think Virginia's got some lessons. 50 years ago in Virginia, we were one of the lowest median incomes in the United States. Today, guess what? We're one of the highest. And we've moved farther than any state in the country from back of the pack to front of the pack in our nation's economy. And that's something as Virginians we can feel proud about. How did we do it? Let's take that lesson to Washington. In Virginia, we did it by doing a couple of things and doing them well. But the main thing we did well is we really invested significantly in education. In education, I got any educators or educators? We've got fair taxes and regulation in Virginia. That's really important, but it's education that helps our workforce have the skills they need to attract jobs. It's our education system that attracts great brains and entrepreneurs and innovators to want to come to Virginia. When I was governor of Virginia, we were the best state for business, Forbes magazine, each of the 4 years. And even in the worst recession since the 1930s, here were the companies that agreed to move their corporate headquarters from other states to Virginia. SAIC, Hilton, Meade Westvaco, Volkswagen of North America, CSC, Northrop Grumman, major companies saying, we're going to leave our own states and come to Virginia, and they were coming for a whole lot of reasons, but mostly because they know we have talented people, we value education, we value innovation. That's how to get this national economy going again. And so I'll take that lesson in Washington. We got to get taxes and regulation right, but if we don't have the education system that's top of the world, we're not going to be strong. You know, America used to be #1 in the world in the percentage of our adults that had college degrees. 20 years ago, we were #1. By college, I mean 2-year or 4-year or qualified technical programs. They all matter. Today, we're like #10 in the world. We're going to be #20 in the world if we don't change the arc that we're on. Virginia, on the other hand, has gone from less than half the national average to greater than the national average in college attainment. So we're doing some things right. I want to take that to Washington. The other side will talk about just, cutting taxes is all you need to have a strong economy. Again, you got to have fair taxes, but remember, in the 1950s, Virginia was low tax, but our economy was at the bottom. Our income was low. It was education that brought us forward, and that's the message we need to take. That's #1. #2, fiscal responsibility, and Tom stole part of my line. When I was governor, I had to cut more out of the Virginia budget than anybody who's ever been governor. Billions of dollars. I did it because I was the governor during the worst recession since the 1930s. I didn't run as governor with the bumper sticker, we'll cut more than anybody who's ever been governor, but I had to do it. And there's a right way and wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is to not have any sacred cows and find cuts wherever you can. The wrong way to do it is to shred the safety net. I will never shred the safety net in this country, and I'm not going to privatize Medicaid or Medicare, and I'm not going to privatize... cuts of all kinds, and a lot of them weren't popular. I started with my own salary. That definitely wasn't popular with some that I'm related to. I started with my own salary 10 months in, and we made cuts for the next 3.5 years, but we didn't shred the safety net. We didn't do gimmicks like threatening government shutdown or threatening not to pay our obligations. When the other side talks about cuts, they're willing to propose the kind of gimmicky things like government shutdown or not paying our debt that frankly hurt the country, not help. That's not the way to do it. And we didn't do cuts by tanking the economy. Sometimes if you just focus on cutting everything, you cut the things that you need to keep the economy strong. So while I was making cuts as governor, I was also putting more money back into higher ed capital expansion so we could grow the number of spaces in our colleges. I was putting more money into pre-K so that we could increase the brain power and the skills of our workers, starting with our very youngest. You've got to always be investing back, and that's the difference in fiscal responsibility between us and the other side. We know you got to make cuts, but we also know you got to make investments, and we also know that you got to look at taxes and revenues. It's wrong to give tax breaks to really productive and profitable companies like ExxonMobil. They don't need them. Yeah. They don't need them. If we're going to have to make hard decisions on spending cuts, we also got to be taking away some of the breaks we're giving to people who don't need them. That's fiscal responsibility. And finally, balance and civility. This is one that I think I only really learned after I was governor. As I became DNC chair, I started to spend more time in Washington and more time in the 42 states that I traveled to. And I realized that we've got some things here in Virginia that at least I was taking for granted a little bit. I'm a proud Democrat, and I will never be ashamed to be a Democrat. I'll never be ashamed to be a great supporter of President Obama and Democrats in the office. I know my job, if I get elected, is to work with anybody who wants to solve problems. I was governor with 2 Republican houses my first 2 years, then with 1 Republican house and 1 Democratic house my second 2 years. There are Republican members of the legislature who did not vote with me on virtually anything. I would still cross the street to go see them and say hi to them because I consider them my friends, and they feel the same way about me. Even with people you don't agree with today, you can still find things you agree with them on tomorrow. And when we were disagreeing about things, and we didn't make it personal. because the next day I could go to them and I could say, let's preserve open space. Let's ban smoking in bars and restaurants. Let's do things to increase rail and public transit. Let's do all kinds of things. And all those accolades that Virginia got for best managed and best state for business, best state to raise a child, that just wasn't because of a governor. That was because of a governor working together with people, even people in the other party. So I'm going to go to Washington and be a proud Democrat if I'm elected and have the honor to be a U.S. Senator. I'll never be bashful about my party, but we got to go to solve problems. We have big problems, and the way we solve problems is by working together. Mark Warner's doing that right now on the budget, trying to be the part of that gang of five that's coming up with bipartisan budget solutions. John Warner used to do that. Some of you remember John Warner used to be in a gang of 14 senators, Democrats and Republicans, that were trying to work together. I'm going to join those gangs. I hope it's not a sign of the time that the 14 are now 5. We need to go back to 14 or 30 who are willing to work across the aisle, but I'll be one of that number, whatever that number is. Finally, I'm going to close and just tell you a little bit about the race and how you can help. This is going to be a very close race. You know, there were 3 polls done in the last month, and they all showed this race was either a dead heat or 2 of them had me slightly ahead. And by slightly, I mean 2 points or less. This is basically a tie. It's a tie 17 months out, and I think it's going to be close all the way through. Now, when I saw those numbers, I felt great, because I've never seen myself tied in a poll till about 7 days before an election. So for me, it's like, wow, this is fantastic. But it is going to be close. And the presidential race in Virginia is going to be close. The good news is there's going to be major investments. I know this, President Obama and his team are going to take Virginia even more seriously in 2012 than in 2008, and that's good news for us, right? But the other side will too. The other side will pour a lot of resources into Virginia. We have worked Virginia, all of us here. We've been part of the generation that has turned Virginia from a politically irrelevant state in presidential politics. We've turned this state into a presidential battleground like Ohio and Florida. And I hope you feel good about that. That's what you've done. That's what we've all done working together. I'd rather be a battleground than be one of those states where, like, we never have a chance, right? And we are a battleground, and that's good, but there's some pressure that comes with that. When you're in one of the states that's not competitive, you don't have to show your best game. The candidates aren't coming in a presidential year. But when they're all coming, and they're all writing about Virginia, and they are, that means that we got to really work hard. We got to put our best foot forward. We're going to invest heavily in the presidential race. We're going to invest heavily in this Senate race. And before that, we got elections in 2011, right? We got local elections in the counties, and we have every member of the House of Delegates and every member of the state Senate up for election this year. And even after a tough redistricting redraw, we've got the ability as Democrats to go out and win some really good races. So I'm thrilled to be here and be part of it. We've got sign-up sheets for volunteers and donors, and we definitely need both. We're going to work really hard in a grassroots way to keep Virginia moving in the right direction. I'm so encouraged that so many of you have turned out today and been encouraging as I was making the decision to get in this race. And as I say, I'm 7 for 7. I've never lost one. Now, I've never gotten more than 52% in any contested race I've run. So we know it's going to be close. But with you behind me, I know I'm not going to lose this one. Thanks a lot for coming.